Commander Zethkar clicked his mandibles in irritation as he reviewed the intelligence reports on his holographic display. The bridge of the hegemony dreadnought times bone render times hummed with activity, but his attention was focused on a single, troubling data point. Another merchant vessel lost in the outer rim. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Vexara, reported with a nervous twitch of her antennae. That makes 7 this cycle. The Corvani hegemony had ruled this sector of the galaxy for over 2,000 standard years. Their chitinous exoskeletons and razor-sharp claws had carved out an empire spanning 47 star systems, built on the bones of countless lesser species. Yet something was picking off their trade ships with surgical precision. Pirates? Zethkar asked, though he already knew the answer. Negative, Commander. No demands, no ransoms, no survivors. The ships simply vanish. When we find the wreckage, it's been stripped of all technology and cargo. Zethkar's compound eyes glittered with predatory interest. In his 3 centuries of service, he had crushed rebellions on a dozen worlds and personally led the genocide of the Netlari species. Nothing in this galaxy could match Corvani military might. Nothing except, Sir. Vexara continued, her voice dropping to a whisper. The survivors who escaped in life pods before their ships were destroyed, they all tell the same story, which is, they claim to have seen ships unlike anything in our databases. Sleek, metallic vessels that seem to bend light around them. And, Sir, they describe the attackers as bipedal creatures with pale, smooth skin and forward-facing eyes. Zethkar's blood ran cold. Every civilized species in the galaxy knew those descriptions. They were the stuff of children's nightmares and ancient warnings passed down through generations. Humans, he breathed. The bridge fell silent. Even the youngest crew members had heard the stories. Humans were the bogeymen of galactic civilization. Creatures from the darkest myths who supposedly dwelled in the forbidden zones beyond the galactic rim. According to legend, they were monsters who consumed the flesh of their enemies and wore their bones as ornaments. The stories claimed they had technology so advanced it was indistinguishable from magic, and a hunger for violence that made even the Corvani seem peaceful. Most rational beings dismissed such tales as primitive superstition. After all, no concrete evidence of human existence had ever been found. The occasional deep space probe that ventured into the outer darkness simply never returned, which was easily explained by the harsh conditions in those regions. Commander, Vexara said carefully, perhaps we should report this to High Command. If there really are unknown hostiles in our territory. Unknown? Zethkar's laugh was a harsh clicking sound. Lieutenant, I've studied every xenological database in the hegemony. I know the myths as well as anyone, but myths don't destroy starships. He turned to his tactical officer, a scarred veteran named Grixnall. Status of the 73rd Fleet? Fully operational, sir. 12 dreadnoughts, 48 cruisers, and supporting vessels. The most powerful force the hegemony has ever assembled. Good. We'll investigate these disappearances personally. If there are pirates or unknown aliens in our territory, they'll learn why the Corvani rule this sector. 3 days later, the massive fleet dropped out of hyperspace near the coordinates where the merchant vessel times Prophet's Edge times had vanished. The area seemed empty except for debris scattered across several thousand kilometers of space. Scanning the wreckage, reported the science officer. Hull composition matches the missing freighter. Energy signatures suggest the ship was disabled by some form of electromagnetic pulse before being methodically stripped. Zethkar studied the tactical display. Whatever had attacked the freighter was thorough and efficient. Every piece of valuable technology had been removed with surgical precision, leaving only worthless scrap metal behind. Sir, the communications officer called out. We're receiving a transmission. From where? Unknown. The signal appears to be coming from empty space, but our sensors detect no source. Zethkar's exoskeleton bristled. Put it through. The main display flickered, and suddenly the bridge was looking at something that shouldn't exist. The creature on screen was tall and lean, with pale pink skin stretched over a framework of bone and muscle. Its eyes were a piercing blue color, set in a face that seemed almost predatory in its symmetry. When it spoke, its voice was calm and measured, carrying an accent that seemed to come from the depths of space itself. Greetings, Corvani Fleet. I am Captain Sarah Chen, of the Terran Reconnaissance Corps. You are currently in violation of Terran territorial claims. The bridge erupted in shocked clicks and chitters. Zethkar raised a claw for silence, his mind racing. Humans were real. They were actually real, and one was speaking to him as if the mighty Corvani hegemony were trespassing in their own territory. I am Commander Zethkar, of the Corvani hegemony, he replied, putting as much authority into his voice as possible. This sector has belonged to my people for 2 millennia. I don't know what species you represent, but you will withdraw immediately or face the consequences. The human's expression didn't change. Commander, your maps are out of date. Humanity has claimed this region of space under the Terran Colonial Charter. Your merchant vessels have been crossing our borders without authorization. Your borders? Zethkar's voice rose to a screech. You primitive creatures are nothing but myths. Ancient stories used to frighten children. For the first time, Captain Chen smiled. It was not a reassuring expression. Myths don't disable your ships with quantum disruptors, Commander. Myths don't strip your technology for analysis. And myths certainly don't have fleets positioned throughout this sector. As if summoned by her words, space around the Corvani fleet began to shimmer. Dozens of sleek, angular ships materialized from apparent nothingness, their hulls reflecting starlight like polished mirrors. They moved with impossible grace, positioning themselves in a perfect sphere around the hegemony vessels. Impossible, Grixnall whispered. Our sensors show no signatures. It's like they're not even there. Oh, we're here, Chen said, apparently able to hear their bridge communications. We've been watching your empire for quite some time, Commander. Did you really think you could expand across the galaxy without someone taking notice? Zethkar's tactical display was a nightmare of red warning symbols. The human ships outnumbered his fleet 3-1, and they had appeared without triggering any of his advanced detection systems. Worse, energy readings from their hulls suggested weapon systems far beyond current Corvani technology. What do you want? He demanded. Compliance, Chen replied simply. Your empire will withdraw from all systems beyond your traditional borders. Your military will cease expansion operations immediately, and you will never again send vessels into Terran space without proper authorization. And if we refuse, then you'll discover why your ancestors created stories about us in the first place. The human ships began to glow with an eerie blue light. The Corvani sensors screamed warnings as massive energy signatures spiked beyond their measurement scales. These weren't just warships, they were weapons of annihilation. You have 1 hour to begin your withdrawal, Commander. We suggest you use that time wisely. The transmission cut off, leaving the Corvani bridge in stunned silence. Zethkar stared at the tactical display, watching as the human vessels maintained their perfect formation around his fleet. They hadn't moved, hadn't threatened, but their mere presence was more intimidating than any weapon he'd ever faced. Sir, Vexara said quietly, should we alert High Command? And tell them what? That creatures from ancient myth have somehow built a fleet that makes ours look like toys? That they've been watching our empire expand and choosing when to reveal themselves? Zethkar's mind raced through the implications. If humans were real and possessed technology this advanced, how long had they been out there? What else did they know about the Corvani? About the other galactic powers? Sir, incoming message from the flagship Times Supreme Victory, **. Admiral Corthan wants a status report. Admiral Corthan was one of the most ruthless commanders in the hegemony, a veteran of countless wars who had never met an enemy he couldn't crush. He was also Zethkar's direct superior, and not known for accepting excuses. Put him through. The hologram of Admiral Corthan materialized on the bridge, his massive form bristling with ceremonial weapons and battle scars. His compound eyes fixed on Zethkar with predatory intensity. Commander, explain why my fleet is sitting motionless in empty space instead of hunting down these mystery raiders. Admiral, the situation has developed beyond our initial parameters. We've made contact with the hostile forces responsible for the merchant vessel disappearances. Contact? Have you destroyed them? Zethkar gestured to the tactical display. Sir, perhaps you should see for yourself. Admiral Corthan's expression shifted from irritation to shock as he took in the readings. His experienced eye immediately recognized the tactical impossibility of their situation. How many ships? Approximately 200 that we can detect, Admiral. But sir, these aren't raiders or pirates. They claim to represent something called the Terran Reconnaissance Corps. Terran? Corthan's voice was barely a whisper. You mean? Yes, Admiral. Humans. They're real. The silence stretched between them as the implications sank in. Every military officer in the hegemony had studied the ancient warnings, if only to understand the historical development of their civilization. The stories described humans as the ultimate predators, creatures so dangerous that even the most aggressive species had learned to fear them. Admiral, Zethkar continued, they've given us an ultimatum. Withdraw from all expansion territories within 1 hour, or face the consequences. Admiral Corthan's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter or terror. An ultimatum? To the Corvani hegemony? These creatures clearly don't understand who they're dealing with. Sir, with respect, I don't think we understand who we're dealing with. Their ships appeared from nowhere, surrounding our entire fleet without being detected. Their energy signatures are off the scale. Energy signatures can be faked, Commander. Stealth technology can be overcome. What we're seeing here is an elaborate bluff, designed to intimidate us into retreat. Zethkar wanted to agree, but something about the human captain's calm confidence troubled him. Chen had spoken as if she were delivering a weather report rather than threatening the most powerful military force in the sector. Admiral, permission to attempt negotiations? If these humans do possess advanced technology, perhaps we can reach some form of accommodation. Negative. Corthan's voice cut through the bridge like a blade. The Corvani hegemony does not negotiate with myths and children's stories. We've conquered 47 systems by projecting strength, not by showing weakness to every alien that makes threats. The Admiral's image turned to address the fleet. All ships, prepare for combat. Target the largest enemy vessels, and prepare to fire on my command. Zethkar felt his blood turn to ice. Admiral, respectfully, we don't know the full extent of their capabilities. Perhaps we should. Commander, you seem to have forgotten the first rule of Corvani military doctrine. When faced with an unknown enemy, strike first and strike hard. These humans may have impressive toys, but they've never faced the full might of a hegemony battle fleet. Across the fleet, weapon systems came online. Particle cannons charged, torpedo tubes loaded, and targeting computers locked onto the nearest human vessels. The Corvani ships were built for one purpose: overwhelming destruction. Their hulls bristled with weapons that could crack planets, and their shields could withstand the output of a small star. Sir, Grix now reported, all weapons charged and ready. Targeting solutions locked. Admiral Corthan's laugh was a harsh, predatory sound. Let's see how mythical these creatures really are. All ships, open fire. The space around the Corvani fleet erupted in light and fury. Thousands of particle beams, plasma torpedoes, and quantum missiles streaked toward the human vessels. It was enough firepower to sterilize a planet, concentrated into a single devastating salvo. The human ships didn't move. They didn't activate shields or take evasive action. They simply absorbed the full force of the hegemony's assault, as if it were nothing more than a gentle breeze. When the light faded and the sensors cleared, every human vessel remained exactly where it had been, completely undamaged. Their hulls didn't even show scorch marks from the attack. The Corvani bridge fell into horrified silence. It was impossible. Nothing could survive that level of concentrated firepower, let alone emerge completely unscathed. Sir, the tactical officer's voice was barely audible. Their ships, they're completely undamaged. It's as if our weapons had no effect at all. Admiral Corthan stared at the display, his certainty crumbling before his eyes. That's impossible. Run a full diagnostic on all weapon systems. Sir, all systems are functioning normally. Direct hits confirmed on multiple targets, but their hulls, it's like they're made of something our weapons can't even touch. Slowly, the human vessels began to glow brighter. The blue light that had seemed decorative now pulsed with obvious menace. When Captain Chen's voice came through the communications system, her tone remained perfectly calm. Impressive display, Admiral Corthon. Our sensors recorded the equivalent of 47 terawatts of focused energy. That's enough to destroy most planetary defense systems. How are you still alive? Corthon's voice cracked with disbelief. Because we've been preparing for this conversation for a very long time, Admiral. Your species isn't the only one that studies its neighbors. The human ships began to move, shifting into new formations with fluid precision. Each vessel moved independently yet seemed connected to all the others, creating patterns that were both beautiful and terrifying. You've had your demonstration, Admiral. Now it's our turn. The first human ship fired a single shot, a beam of pure white light that lasted less than a second. It struck the Corvani dreadnought Times, Eternal Conquest Times, directly amidships. The massive warship, pride of the hegemony fleet and symbol of their military might, simply ceased to exist. There was no explosion, no debris field, no electromagnetic signature. One moment it was there, and the next it was gone, leaving only empty space where 8,000 crew members had been a heartbeat before. The silence on the bridge was deafening. Zethkar felt his exoskeleton trembling as the reality of their situation finally sank in. These weren't just humans, they were predators from the deepest nightmares of galactic civilization, and they had technology that made the Corvani look like primitive savages. Admiral, Chen's voice continued conversationally, you now have 59 minutes to begin your withdrawal. I suggest you use them wisely. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been called within hours of the first reports reaching the core systems. Representatives from dozens of species gathered in the massive chamber on Centris Prime, their various forms creating a tapestry of alien life, united by one common emotion: terror. Chancellor Vorthaki of the Selenari Union called the session to order, her crystalline form chiming with barely controlled anxiety. Honored delegates, we face an unprecedented crisis. The reports from the Corvani sector have been verified by 3 independent sources. The holographic display in the center of the chamber showed grainy footage captured by a surviving Corvani scout ship. The images were difficult to watch. Sleek vessels emerging from nothingness. Energy beams that deleted matter from existence. And most disturbing of all, clear recordings of bipedal creatures with pale skin and predatory eyes. Humans, whispered Ambassador Theclon of the Arxilian Confederacy. His 6 arms trembled as he spoke the forbidden word. The ancient enemy has returned. They never left, corrected Dr. Nilith, the chief xenoarchaeologist for the council. The elderly Voltani's sensor stalks drooped with exhaustion. She'd spent the last 72 hours analyzing every scrap of historical data about humanity. Our research suggests they've been out there all along, watching us from the galactic rim. The chamber erupted in frightened chatter. Species that had been mortal enemies for millennia suddenly found themselves looking to each other for support against this cosmic nightmare. Order. Chancellor Vorthaki's voice resonated through the chamber. Dr. Nilith, please share your findings with the council. The xenoarchaeologist activated her personal hologram, displaying ancient artifacts and scrolls from across the galaxy. Every major civilization has stories about humans. The Corvani call them the Bone Eaters. The Marxari refer to them as sky demons. The extinct Kelthari left warnings about the pale destroyers carved into their final monument. She gestured to a timeline spanning millions of years. These aren't random myths, they're historical records. Humanity appears to have been active in this galaxy far longer than any of our current civilizations. They were here when our ancestors were still primitive tribes. Ambassador Zex Ara of the Trade Federation leaned forward, her insectoid features sharp with concern. Are you suggesting humans are native to this galaxy? Worse. I believe they're the original spacefaring species. Everyone else, all of us, we're the newcomers. We've been living in their galaxy all along. The implications sent a wave of horror through the assembled delegates. Every species had believed themselves to be among the first intelligent life to reach the stars. The idea that something else had been watching them develop, waiting in the darkness between galaxies, was almost too terrifying to contemplate. What do they want? Asked General Mordak of the Kregan Military Collective, his scarred carapace bearing witness to countless battles. Unknown, Dr. Nilith replied. The historical records suggest they disappeared approximately 50,000 years ago. No one knows why they left or what brought them back. The Corvani expansion, Chancellor Vorthaki said quietly. Their territory now extends to the galactic rim. They must have finally crossed into human space. The chamber fell silent as the delegates processed this information. The Corvani hegemony was the most aggressive expansionist power in known space, constantly pushing their borders outward in search of new resources and territories. If they had inadvertently awakened humanity, honored delegates, a new voice interrupted. Perhaps I can provide some answers. Every being in the chamber turned to see a figure standing in the observer's gallery. A figure that shouldn't have been able to enter the most secure building in galactic civilization. The creature was tall and lean, with pale skin and those distinctive forward-facing eyes. It wore a simple black uniform with no visible weapons or technology. Security forces immediately moved to surround the intruder, but they stopped when Chancellor Vorthaki raised a crystalline hand. Let them speak. The human, for there was no doubt what it was, descended to the main floor with fluid grace. When it spoke, its voice carried the same calm authority that Captain Chen had demonstrated. I am Ambassador David Park, of the Terran Diplomatic Corps. I apologize for the informal introduction, but the current circumstances require direct communication. How did you get in here? General Mordak demanded. This facility has the most advanced security in the galaxy. Ambassador Park smiled, that same unsettling expression the Corvani had witnessed. General, your security is indeed impressive by current galactic standards. However, humanity has had considerable time to study your technologies. He gestured to the air, and a holographic display appeared showing the exterior of the council building. Surrounding it, completely invisible to all sensors, were dozens of human vessels. We've been monitoring your emergency session with great interest. Your Dr. Nilith's research is quite accurate, though incomplete. Incomplete how? The xenoarchaeologist asked, her scientific curiosity overriding her fear. You've focused on our departures and arrivals, but you've missed the most important detail. We never actually left. Humanity has maintained a presence in this galaxy for the entire time you call our absence. The hologram shifted to show a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Thousands of star systems glowed with soft blue light, far more than any species had ever explored. We've been watching all of you develop, learn, grow. We've seen your wars, your alliances, your struggles for survival. We've remained hidden because we learned long ago that our presence tends to disrupt natural development. Disrupt how? Chancellor Vorthaki's voice carried a note of dread. When a species discovers they're not alone in the universe, they react in predictable ways. Fear, aggression, desperate attempts to either appease or destroy the unknown. We learned it was better to remain in the shadows until civilizations reached a certain level of maturity. Ambassador Theclon's arms gestured frantically. You've been experimenting on us, using us as test subjects. Observing, Park corrected gently. Not experimenting. We've never interfered with your natural development. Every war you've fought, every discovery you've made, every alliance you've formed, all of it was your own choice. Until now, General Mordak growled. What changed? The Corvani hegemony's expansion has reached beyond acceptable parameters. Their military doctrine calls for the systematic extermination of any species they cannot subjugate. Left unchecked, they would eventually discover and destroy several civilizations we consider promising. The humans' words hung in the air like a death sentence. Every delegate understood the implication. Humanity saw some species as worth protecting and others as expendable. The hegemony has been given an ultimatum, Park continued. They can withdraw to their traditional borders and adopt more peaceful expansion methods, or they can face the consequences of their choices. And if they refuse, Dr. Nilith asked, then humanity will ensure they are no longer capable of threatening galactic peace. The casual way he spoke about destroying the most powerful military force in known space sent chills through the chamber. The Corvani hegemony commanded thousands of warships and controlled 47 star systems. The idea that these humans could simply erase such a vast empire was beyond comprehension. "How many of you are there?" Chancellor Vorthaki asked. "Enough." "That's not an answer." Park's expression remained neutral. "Chancellor, your species' population is approximately 14 billion individuals spread across 6 star systems, the Corvani number roughly 30 billion across their empire. The Marxari Confederation contains 8 billion citizens. Shall I continue?" The implication was clear. Humanity knew exactly how many individuals belonged to every species in the galaxy. They had been watching, counting, cataloging everything. "Our current population is sufficient to maintain galactic peace, while allowing for continued natural development of younger civilizations." "You speak of us as if we're children," Ambassador Zexera said with obvious resentment. "Not children," Park replied. "But your species achieved spaceflight approximately 3,000 years ago. Humanity has been exploring the cosmos for over 1,000,000 years. The comparison is significant. 1,000,000 years. The number was almost incomprehensible. Most species had barely developed writing systems when humanity was already traveling between stars. "What do you want from us?" General Mordak demanded. "Compliance with basic interstellar law. No more genocidal expansions. No more enslaving or exterminating primitive civilizations. No more weapons of planetary destruction. In exchange, humanity will provide protection from external threats and access to certain technologies." "External threats?" Dr. Nyleth leaned forward with interest. For the first time, Ambassador Park's expression showed something other than calm neutrality. A flicker of concern crossed his features. "This galaxy is not unique, honored delegates. There are others out there, beings from distant galaxies who view this region of space as potential territory for expansion. Some of these entities make the Corvani look peaceful by comparison." The chamber fell into stunned silence. The idea that there might be threats worse than the hegemony was almost impossible to process. "You're saying there are hostile aliens from other galaxies?" Chancellor Vorthaki's crystalline form chimed with distress. 3 separate extragalactic civilizations have sent probe fleets toward this region. Their arrival times range from 50 years to several centuries. Depending on their chosen route, without proper preparation and unified defense, this galaxy would fall within a standard year. "And you're offering to protect us?" "We're offering partnership. Humanity has defended this galaxy before. That's why your ancient records speak of our departures. We weren't leaving. We were fighting. The last major incursion ended approximately 50,000 years ago." The pieces began falling into place for Dr. Nyleth. The Great Silence period in our archaeological records. The sudden collapse of several advanced civilizations around that time. Enderlo, collateral damage from a war your species couldn't comprehend. This time, we hope to minimize such losses by establishing clear protocols before the next incursion begins. "What kind of protocols?" General Mordak asked. "Unified command structure for galactic defense. Standardized communication systems, technology sharing agreements. Most importantly, an end to internal conflicts that weaken our collective ability to respond to external threats." Ambassador Park gestured, and the hologram shifted to show various alien ship designs, vessels that looked nothing like the sleek human craft they'd seen before. These ships were massive, angular constructions that seemed designed purely for destruction. "The Devourers will arrive first, approximately 60 years from now. They convert entire star systems into raw materials for their fleets. After them come the Collective, a hive mind that considers individual consciousness a disease to be cured. Finally, the Shapers, who redesign entire galaxies to suit their aesthetic preferences." The images were horrifying. Ships the size of moons, weapons that could collapse stars, and worst of all, recordings of what happened to civilizations that stood in their way. "Why should we trust you?" Ambassador Theclon asked. "How do we know you're not just another threat trying to trick us into compliance? Because if we wanted to conquer this galaxy, we would have done so already." Park's voice remained calm. But there was steel underneath. Our current fleet could pacify every civilization in this sector within a single year. Instead, we're here talking. Your current fleet? Chancellor Vorthaki asked. The ships you've encountered so far represent approximately 1% of humanity's military capacity. We maintain defensive positions throughout the galaxy, but our main battle fleets are stationed between the galactic rim and the void beyond. 1%. The vessels that had effortlessly destroyed Corvani warships represented 1% of human military power. The implications were staggering. We don't want to rule you, Park continued. We want to preserve you. The diversity of life in this galaxy is something worth protecting. But protection requires cooperation. What about the Corvani? General Mordak asked. They're not known for backing down from fights. The hegemony is currently debating their response to our ultimatum. Their time limit expires in approximately 6 hours. And if they choose to fight, then they will discover why their ancestors feared us enough to embed warnings in their genetic memory. The casual certainty in Park's voice was more terrifying than any threat. He spoke of destroying a galactic empire the way others might discuss changing the weather. Honored delegates, Chancellor Vorthaki called the session to order. We need to vote on humanity's proposal. All those in favor of establishing formal diplomatic relations with the Terran government, one by one, crystalline hands, tentacles, claws, and appendages rose in the air. Even the most aggressive species recognized the reality of their situation. Humanity was offering partnership instead of conquest, protection instead of subjugation. The motion carries unanimously, Vorthaki announced. Ambassador Park, the Galactic Council formally recognizes Terran authority in matters of galactic defense. Thank you, Chancellor. I'll transmit the details of our proposed defensive protocols to your respective governments. In the meantime, I suggest you prepare your populations for significant changes in galactic policy. What kind of changes? Dr. Nyleth asked. For starters, the Corvani hegemony as you know it will cease to exist within the next few hours. Their territory will be redistributed to species capable of peaceful development. Several primitive civilizations that were marked for extermination will instead receive protection and development assistance. Park paused, his gaze sweeping across the assembled delegates. This galaxy is about to become a very different place. Humanity has returned not as conquerors, but as guardians. The age of expansion through violence has ended. The age of cooperation has begun. As if summoned by his words, alerts began chiming on communication devices throughout the chamber. Incoming reports from across the galaxy told the same story. Human ships were appearing over every major population center. Not as invaders, but as protectors. The Corvani have made their choice, Park announced, checking a device on his wrist. Their fleet has engaged our forces in the Outer Rim. Admiral Corthon apparently believed he could rally enough support to drive us back. What's happening? Chancellor Vorthaki asked. Justice, Park replied simply. And the first lesson in why partnership is preferable to conflict. High above Centris Prime, the assembled delegates could see human vessels materializing in the planet's upper atmosphere. They were massive ships, dwarfing the largest vessels in any known fleet. Their hulls gleamed with that same ethereal blue light, and their very presence seemed to make the stars themselves brighter. The Terran Defense Network is now active throughout the galaxy, Park announced. No ship, station, or installation will be harmed unless it poses a threat to galactic peace. But for those who choose violence over cooperation, the lights in the chamber dimmed as every communication device simultaneously received the same transmission. It was a recording from the Corvani sector, showing the last moments of Admiral Corthon's fleet. The hegemony's 73 warships had formed a battle line, their weapons charging for a final, desperate assault on the human forces. It should have been an impressive sight, the concentrated military might of an interstellar empire making its last stand. Instead, it looked like children playing with toys in the face of a hurricane. When the human response came, it wasn't dramatic or spectacular. There were no explosions, no debris fields, no pyrotechnics. The Corvani fleet simply stopped existing. One moment, 73 of the most advanced warships in the galaxy were preparing to fight. The next, there was only empty space and the silent testimony of their former presence in the form of dissipating energy signatures. The hegemony's surrender was transmitted 17 seconds later, Park announced as the recording ended. Their remaining forces have been placed under Terran supervision pending reorganization. In the stunned silence that followed, every delegate understood that the galaxy had fundamentally changed. The old order of conquest and expansion was over. Humanity had returned, and they would not tolerate chaos in their garden. "Welcome to the new galactic order," Ambassador Park said with a slight smile. "I think you're going to like it much better than the old one." 6 months after humanity's emergence, Commander Zethkar stood on the observation deck of what had once been the Corvani flagship Times Supreme Victory *. The massive dreadnought had been transformed into a research station, its weapon systems replaced with scientific equipment, and its crew quarters converted into laboratories staffed by beings from across the galaxy. The irony wasn't lost on him. The ship that had once symbolized Corvani military supremacy now served as a monument to cooperation and peaceful development. His own role had changed just as dramatically, from a commander in the hegemony's war machine to a liaison officer helping other former Corvani worlds transition to their new status as independent systems under Terran protection. "Still brooding, Commander?" The voice belonged to Dr. Senna Okafor, one of the human scientists assigned to oversee the station's research programs. Unlike the intimidating figures they'd first encountered, Dr. Okafor seemed almost ordinary, except for the casual way she discussed technologies that could reshape reality itself. Reflecting, "Doctor, there's a difference." She joined him at the viewport, looking out at the bustling activity surrounding the station. Ships from dozens of species moved through the system, their crews working together on projects that would have been impossible under the old galactic order. "Any regrets?" she asked. Zethkar considered the question carefully. 6 months ago, he had commanded a warship in the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. Now he helped coordinate agricultural development programs for newly liberated worlds. By any measure, it should have felt like a demotion. "None," he said, surprising himself with the certainty in his voice. "The hegemony was efficient, but it was also hollow. We conquered systems not because we needed them, but because conquest was all we knew how to do. And now I've seen what's possible when species work together instead of trying to dominate each other. The agricultural yields on Nexari Prime have increased by 300% since your people shared advanced farming techniques. The Krygon have developed new medical treatments by combining their surgical expertise with Selenari healing crystals. Even former hegemony worlds are thriving under the new system." Dr. Okafor smiled. "It's amazing what becomes possible when you stop wasting resources on weapons designed to kill your neighbors." Through the viewport, they could see the construction framework of humanity's latest project, a massive orbital platform called Gateway Station. Unlike anything previously built in the galaxy, it was designed not for war or commerce, but for a single purpose: preparing for the threats that lay beyond the galactic rim. "Doctor," Zethkar said carefully, "may I ask you something about your people?" "Of course." The ambassador spoke of external threats, beings from other galaxies. "But humanity has been fighting them for millions of years. How is that possible? How has your species survived so long?" Dr. Okafor's expression grew serious. "That's a complicated question, Commander. The simple answer is that we learned early in our development that survival requires adaptation. When we first left our home system, we were much like the other species in this galaxy. Aggressive, territorial, focused on expansion." She gestured to a holographic display that showed the spiral structure of their galaxy. "Our first encounter with an extragalactic threat nearly wiped us out. We barely survived, and only because we were willing to do whatever it took to protect our people." "What did you do?" "We changed everything. Our government, our military doctrine, our entire approach to civilization. We realized that the universe is a dangerous place, and the only way to survive in it is to be more dangerous than anything else out there." The hologram shifted to show images of human technology. Not just the ships they'd seen, but vast orbital complexes, artificial worlds, and structures that seemed to bend space itself around them. We spent the next million years becoming something new. Not just another species trying to carve out territory, but the galaxy's immune system. Every time an external threat appears, we adapt to counter it. Every enemy we face teaches us something new about survival. And the other species? You've been protecting them all this time without their knowledge? Not protecting, exactly. Preparing. A galaxy full of diverse civilizations is stronger than one dominated by a single species. When the next incursion comes, we'll need every perspective, every unique approach to problem-solving we can get. Through the viewport, a new sight appeared that made both beings pause in wonder. A ship was approaching Gateway Station. But it wasn't like the sleek human vessels they'd grown accustomed to. This craft was massive beyond imagination, stretching for hundreds of kilometers and bristling with technologies that seemed to defy known physics. "What is that?" Zethkar breathed. "That, Dr. Okafor said with obvious pride, is the TDF Times Eternal Vigil *, one of our deep space reconnaissance vessels, returning from a scouting mission to monitor the approaching Devourer fleet." The implications hit Zethkar like a physical blow. If this impossibly large ship was just a reconnaissance vessel, what must humanity's actual battle fleet look like? "Doctor, just how large is the human military?" "Large enough. Commander, your people have been thinking about this galaxy as if it were the entire universe, but there are billions of other galaxies out there, each with their own civilizations, their own threats, their own stories. Humanity doesn't just defend this one small corner of space. We maintain watch posts across multiple galaxy clusters." The scale was incomprehensible. Zethkar had thought his own species was ambitious for controlling 47 star systems. Humanity apparently treated entire galaxies as patrol zones. "The Devourer fleet that's approaching," he asked. "How serious is that threat?" "Serious enough that we're activating the full defense grid. But it's not the Devourers themselves that worry us. We've dealt with their kind before. It's what might be following them. Our long-range sensors have detected something else moving through intergalactic space, something we haven't encountered before." Dr. Okafor activated another holographic display, this one showing deep space beyond the galactic rim. Far in the distance, barely visible even to advanced sensors, something vast was moving through the void between galaxies. We call it the Wanderer. It's approximately the size of a small galaxy, and it's been systematically consuming every structure it encounters on its path toward our region. It won't arrive for several thousand years, but when it does, what is it? We don't know. That's what makes it dangerous. In a million years of galactic defense, humanity has cataloged thousands of different threat types. But this is something new. The weight of cosmic responsibility was staggering. Here was a species that had taken upon itself the defense of not just one galaxy, but multiple galaxy clusters, against threats that existed on scales almost too large to comprehend. "Doctor, why are you telling me this? Surely this information is classified at the highest levels." "Because, Commander, the age of secrets is over. The next phase of galactic development requires full transparency between all species. Everyone needs to understand what we're facing, and why the old ways of thinking simply won't work anymore." As if summoned by her words, Ambassador Park materialized on the observation deck. Zethkar had grown used to the human ability to appear anywhere without warning, though it still made his exoskeleton itch with nervous energy. "Commander, Doctor, I hope I'm not interrupting, but we've received some interesting news from the Galactic Council." "Commander, good news or bad news?" Dr. Okafor asked. "Both. The good news is that every major civilization has ratified the new defense protocols. The Marksari Confederation has contributed their advanced shield technologies, the Krygon Military Collective has shared their tactical databases, and even the Selenari have agreed to provide their crystal technology for our sensor networks. And the bad news? The Devourer Advance Fleet has accelerated their approach. They'll arrive 3 years ahead of schedule." Dr. Okafor frowned. "That's concerning. They've never shown that level of tactical flexibility before. It gets worse. Intelligence suggests they're not coming alone. We've detected at least 5 different extragalactic signatures traveling in formation with the main fleet. Zethkar felt his blood chill. An alliance of extragalactic threats? So it would seem. Which means our previous defensive strategies may not be sufficient. Ambassador Park gestured, and the observation deck's viewport transformed into a tactical display showing the entire galaxy. Thousands of human installations became visible, defensive platforms, mobile fleets, and structures so large they could only be artificial worlds. The Terran High Command has authorized full activation of Protocol 7. Every defensive installation in the galaxy will be brought online. All allied species will be given access to military-grade technologies, and will be implementing the Fortress Galaxy strategy. Fortress Galaxy? Zethkar asked. We're going to turn this entire galaxy into a defensive position. Every star system will become a fortress. Every planet, a stronghold. When the enemy arrives, they'll find not scattered civilizations to consume, but a unified defense network covering over 100 billion stars. The scale of the undertaking was beyond imagination. Converting an entire galaxy into a fortress would require resources and coordination on a level never before attempted. How long do we have? Dr. Okafor asked. 47 years until the first enemy elements arrive. Which sounds like a lot of time, but it's barely enough to complete the basic preparations. Through the viewport, they could see more human ships emerging from hyperspace. Not just the elegant vessels they'd grown familiar with, but massive industrial platforms and construction ships that dwarfed entire fleets. Commander, Ambassador Park turned to Zethkar. This is why we need the cooperation of every species in the galaxy. The Corvani understanding of military logistics and the Krygon expertise in fortification will be essential to this project. My people will do whatever is necessary, Zethkar replied without hesitation. But Ambassador, may I ask, in all your millions of years of experience, have you ever faced a threat this large before? Park was quiet for a long moment before answering. Once. About 600,000 years ago, something similar happened in the Andromeda Galaxy. Multiple extragalactic civilizations formed an alliance and launched a coordinated assault. What happened? Andromeda survived, but just barely. The defense required sacrifices that, well, let's say we learned some hard lessons about the price of victory. This time, we're hoping to do better. The observation deck fell silent as all 3 beings contemplated the magnitude of what lay ahead. In 47 years, their galaxy would face an invasion by multiple civilizations capable of crossing the void between galaxies. The attackers would bring technologies and strategies developed across cosmic timescales, wielded by beings whose motivations remained completely unknown. There is one piece of good news, Ambassador Park said eventually. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected something unexpected. What? We're not alone. Other galaxies in this cluster are also preparing defenses. The spiral galaxy M47 has activated what appears to be their own version of a fortress strategy. The elliptical galaxy NGC 2847 has begun broadcasting coordination signals. Even the dwarf galaxies are showing signs of defensive preparation. Dr. Okafor's eyes widened. A multi-galactic defense alliance? It's possible. If we can establish communication and coordination across intergalactic distances, we might be able to create something unprecedented. A united front spanning multiple galaxies. The implications were staggering. What they were discussing wasn't just the defense of a single galaxy, but the coordination of multiple galactic civilizations across millions of light-years of space. Commander, Ambassador Park said, your species may have been conquerors, but you were also excellent organizers. We're going to need that expertise on a scale you've never imagined. Zethkar straightened his exoskeleton, feeling purpose flow through him like electricity. Ambassador, the Corvani pledged their full support to this endeavor. We may not have been wise in our conquests, but we understand logistics, and we understand war. Good. Because in 47 years, we're going to need every advantage we can get. Through the viewport, Gateway Station was fully visible now, its construction nearly complete. But Zethkar could see that it was just the beginning. Around the station, frameworks for dozens of similar installations were taking shape. Each one would serve as a coordination hub for an entire sector's defense, creating a network of fortifications spanning the galaxy. "Doctor," he asked, "what role will the other species play in this defense? Every species has unique capabilities that humanity lacks. The Selenari crystals can store and channel energy in ways our technology can't match. Krygan military doctrine includes defensive strategies we never developed. Even the peaceful Voltani have mathematical insights that could prove crucial to our coordination algorithms. And my people? The Corvani will help coordinate the industrial effort. Your species excels at large-scale logistics and resource management. We'll need that expertise to supply defensive positions across 100 billion star systems." Ambassador Park checked his chronometer. "Speaking of which, I should return to Earth for the strategy briefing. The Terran High Command is finalizing the deployment schedules for the fortress installations. I locked to the Terran Sing 17-6. Earth?" Zethkar had heard references to humanity's homeworld, but never learned details about it. "Our original planet. It's been heavily modified over the millennia, but it remains our governmental center. Would you like to see it?" Before Zethkar could respond, the space around them shimmered, and suddenly they were standing on a platform overlooking the most beautiful world he had ever seen. Earth stretched below them, its surface a mosaic of blue oceans, green continents, and sparkling cities that seemed to float in the atmosphere itself. But it was the orbital infrastructure that took his breath away. Earth was surrounded by thousands of artificial structures. Space elevators reaching into orbit, orbital habitats housing billions of beings, and defensive platforms that could have served as capital ships in any other fleet. "Welcome to Terra," Ambassador Park said, with obvious pride. Population: approximately 40 billion humans and 20 billion allied species representatives. It serves as the command center for galactic defense operations across 17 different galaxies. 17 galaxies. Zethkar's mind reeled at the implications. Humanity wasn't just defending their local region, they were coordinating defense efforts across a significant portion of the known universe. "How?" he asked weakly. "Practice," Dr. Okafor replied simply. "Lots and lots of practice." In the distance, massive ships were departing Earth's orbital facilities, vessels so large they resembled mobile cities more than spacecraft. Each one carried the industrial capacity to fortify an entire star system, along with the personnel needed to coordinate with local populations. "The Fortress Galaxy project begins in earnest tomorrow," Ambassador Park announced. "Every species, every world, every individual has a role to play. We have 47 years to prepare for a threat that could end all life in this galaxy." He turned to face Zethkar directly. "Commander, you and your people have a choice. You can be part of something greater than any empire has ever attempted, or you can stand aside and watch others determine the fate of the galaxy." Zethkar didn't hesitate. "The Corvani choose to stand with humanity and our allies. We may have been conquerors, but we understand that some things are worth fighting for." "Good. Because when those ships darken the sky between galaxies, we're going to need every ally we can get." As if summoned by his words, the platform they stood on began displaying holographic projections of the galaxy's new defensive network. Thousands of installations were already under construction, each one a marvel of cooperative engineering between multiple species. "This is our galaxy now," Ambassador Park said with quiet satisfaction. "Not ruled by conquest or dominated by force, but united by purpose. When the enemy arrives, they'll find not scattered civilizations to prey upon, but a fortress defended by the combined strength of 100 billion stars." The holographic display showed the projected enemy approach routes, the defensive positions being established, and the massive industrial effort required to fortify an entire galaxy. It was ambitious beyond anything ever attempted, but as Zethkar watched the display, he felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries of military service. "Hope, Ambassador," he said. "When this is over, When we've won this war, what then? What does the galaxy become after we've proven we can stand together against any threat? Ambassador Park smiled, and for the first time, it seemed entirely genuine, rather than diplomatically calculated. Then, Commander, we begin preparing for the next threat, because the universe is vast and full of wonders, some of them friendly, some of them hostile, and most of them completely unknown. But we'll face them together? Together, Park confirmed. As one galaxy, one people, one voice speaking for every form of life that calls this region of space home. In the distance, Earth's sun was setting behind the planet's artificial rings, casting everything in golden light. Around them, the greatest defensive project in galactic history was taking shape. Built not by conquerors or empires, but by allies working toward a common goal. Zethkar looked out at the stars and thought about the future. Not as a Corvani warrior seeking new worlds to conquer, but as a guardian of the galaxy, helping to prepare for threats beyond imagination. It felt strange, but it also felt right. The age of expansion through conquest was over. The age of defense through cooperation had begun, and when the enemy ships finally darkened the sky, they would find not scattered prey, but a fortress galaxy ready for war.